Christine Mastandrea is COO at Whitestone REIT, and she is also a fun person to talk to. She's a professor at Rice University in her spare time, and after she had me speak at her class a few months ago, she was kind enough to return the favor and sit down with me for an interview for this show. Whitestone REIT owns open-air community centers in Arizona and Texas. As of their last earnings presentation, they had 55 properties with just under 5 million square feet of shopping center space. I had a great conversation with Christine. We talked about her philosophy that small is beautiful when it comes to retail real estate. We discussed strategies for identifying and acquiring properties, and also talked about how they understand neighborhoods through data analytics and psychographics. So our recent chat was recorded live in New York, and it is coming up right now. Live from New York, it's Where We Buy. That's right, you're listening to Where We Buy. It's the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL. And today we're recording live from the JLL booth at ICSC New York. So kick it off, Christine, tell us your name and what you do.
Name is Christine Mastandrea. I'm a co-founder and COO of Whitestone REIT.
We were just talking. You were telling me you're on Bloomberg Radio.
That's correct.
So what is that like to go on? And tell me a little bit about the show. I mean, what was that experience all about?
One has to be really freewheeling with real estate and being open to not just talking about what everybody knows, but throwing some future thinking out there as well, just like you do.
Right. And it's true. Like, this show is not scripted. But I do tell people, hey, here's the topics I'd like to hit. And then we always come up with some other ones off the cuff as well as it is. But I imagine with live radio, it's a little bit more of a tightrope act, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
How often do you do that?
Oh, every time I'm in New York City, probably once a quarter.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. So that's a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
I need to listen. Is that on, like, what radio station would that be on?
Oh, so it's just part of... So when you sign into Bloomberg, they have radio and TV that you can access.
How did you get into this?
Somehow, I think I always had a point of view in retail that was different. And I spoke directly from experience. I've been in this business for quite a long time. And my point of view that, small is beautiful was very different than people that looked at malls and power centers as being the main drivers of retail. So when people think about retail, they think about the mall. They think about soft goods and hard goods. When you think about all the retail real estate out there, that's less than 15% of the total addressable market. And that was being overlooked for a number of reasons. And I like to speak about it. I thought there was a great opportunity to be in that space.
Small is beautiful. So how do you apply that? Tell us about the Whitestone portfolio. Is it a small but beautiful properties?
It is. So we like smaller format centers. So what we saw is really, I think, when everybody thinks about Amazon having the effect on the business, I thought Amazon was just about solving the problem of convenience and time. What was really changing is that women were coming into the workforce. There was less time for shopping. And with that, there was a need to meet convenience. And so looking at centers that were much more convenient to home and to accessible locations, smaller format, smaller shop space, was really being overlooked by the institutions. And so we saw an opportunity when I started with the company, we began in 2006. And prior to that, people were overlooking these types of assets. And so there's a big spread in cap rates. And there was also a big spread in disparity as to underwriting those assets as well. So went into what I would consider the largest, fastest growing markets in the United States at that time. And that was in Texas and Arizona. So started buying up assets in those markets at really great prices, especially after the financial crisis in 2008. We managed to buy I'd say 40% of our revenues come from Phoenix. So we bought into the East Valley and then bought into Austin, Dallas, and Houston, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. Now it's the cool place to be. People are starting to recognize the value of our portfolio as well.
Are you continuing to acquire new properties?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So we have recycled out of some of our, our older properties, and we continue to, buy within our markets, but we're also looking at newer markets that are similar too.
So recycling, tell me a little bit more about that. How does that program work? Do you hold them for a certain amount of time, or what's the thought behind it?
So we always, the tendency, I think, a lot of times when you think about retail and the type of retail that we look for is we're looking for areas of job growth. So we're looking for upwardly mobile communities, high job growth. And at some point, you do get to where you have an asset that's stabilized, and there's really not that much more that you can grow out of that asset. And we've had a really great opportunity in the last 2 years to sell at really, really great prices and then recycle into other assets that maybe have lease-up opportunities or also in great neighborhoods. Maybe, need a little work and a little TLC. And then we re-merchandise those assets, and then we start the whole process over again. And that has given us a great opportunity for growth as a public company.
How do you identify a property where you think there's a great opportunity to re-merchandise? Like, because you got to be creative, right? It's not evident, right?
No, it's not. What we found, so there's two things. One of the things that we say that we do is we have to successfully serve the neighborhood. And in order to successfully serve the neighborhood, you really have to know the neighborhood. So we have always used data points from Esri, which is an GIS program, and we study not just demography, but psychographics as well. And so that gives us a better understanding of what that shopper wants, what they're looking for. That's number one. Then also areas that might be shifting and changing, right? So it may be what we found, especially, I think this is a good one to speak to, in Phoenix, which, especially in Scottsdale, which was really a market that was more 20 years ago driven by retirees. It was getting younger. And we found these really great communities that were built by Del Webb, which they were built for retirees, but they're nice little 2-bedroom patio homes, and they were getting converted over to families. And so we would buy those centers that were anchored to those communities, right? And so understanding that shifting change, we would then re-merchandise those properties to the new shifting demographic. And then also that would recall, so it's not just re-merchandising, you would rebrand the center as well. So that meant improving the center, a lot of times reskinning it, refacading, adding community space. A lot of times community space may be adding restaurant space and patio space to a center as well. So it takes a little creativity. It takes a little bit of what I consider, you really got to grind away at it, right? Yeah. But you have to root in knowing that community first.
How do you identify what is the right restaurant for that center? And is it local or is it national? Do you care? Does that make a difference?
So we really like local operators because we like to be unique. We like to also make sure that we're working with restaurateurs that offer a considerable value to that community, right? So even though most of our communities have household incomes of well over $100,000, doesn't mean that everybody wants to go to a white tablecloth restaurant. We like a repeat visitor. So we're very, very careful in how we curate our restaurants. And usually we look for people that really know. So a lot of our restaurateurs actually live in the area. So they know the area itself. They're creating for that area. So we're able to curate with them for that neighborhood. And this comes down to knowing their menus, right? Knowing their price points. It's happened in the restaurant space in particular is point of sale has gotten very sophisticated. So what used to be considered, a kind of a difficult business to be in, it is complicated because you're creating art every night for your community, right? You're basically creating this experience. So we look for those that have really known how to advance the craft, are scalable, have really good management teams. And those are the ones that we scout out to bring into our centers. So very local, but experienced and scalable in a price point that works for a broader range of customers. So we have that customer stickiness too. By the way, with Placer now, we're able to measure our customer stickiness. That's also very important for us. So we look for centers that people have repeat visits over and over.
So for folks that aren't familiar, talk a little bit more about Placer, that data.
So Placer AI has been, I think, a game changer for our business. For the first time, we've been actually able to measure visits by people with, of course, their cell phones, right? So you give a lot of information away with your cell phones. If you have an app open, chances are it's following you and where you're going and your dwell time, so on and so forth. And we're able to actually take that now and match that to the community you're from which is where we then get the Esri psychographics. So we can find out about you, find out about your habits. And then with that, with Placer now, I understand they're also combining, they're doing work with Esri together. So this is even going to get better for us. So with that, I'm able to find out, through using that, your dwell time, where you're going in the center, how much time you're spending there, probably where you're spending your money as well. And that has been a really great tool for us. So I think it helps us understand who our true traffic generators are, where people are coming from and why.
And I should pipe up too, for folks that aren't familiar, it is anonymized. You don't get individual shoppers, you just get an aggregate. You get like percentage of people that came from home and then where they go to after that and what stores they go to and what, demographic groups in aggregate they're from. It's got to be really valuable. Does it ever surprise you? Do you ever say, boy, I had this center pegged all wrong?
This has been the fun part of discovery, is that when you really dig into, you really, looking back, if we always look at the past, a lot of the information that we have was not really forward thinking. You were looking backward. And we also have noticed too that we talk to the owners of the shop space in our neighborhood to say, has your customer changed? What have you noticed different? Who's showing up? So we take that information. We take also from Placer the information of travel, mark that back, and we have discovered where neighborhoods have changed significantly, and we've been able to get ahead of that with an edge. And so we just did that recently with a center. I was in Texas. It was a great location, but it had what I would consider sort of a tired, older grocer in it. And I'm not going to say who the grocer is, but it was. You could just see, we saw the traffic patterns going down. We saw that the tenancy was struggling. And we looked and said, I think we need to approach this differently. So number one, we started seeing that there was a significant neighborhood change going on, but also that the center was flanked by two really great grocers. They had Whole Foods on one side and HEB on the other. And HEB in Texas is very difficult to compete against. So we knew that this was going to be just a why continue? And when it was time for renewal, we decided to part ways. And they wanted to take a discount route. We said, we're not going to go there. It's a good time to separate. But what we discovered in doing the research and the traffic patterns, and also with the neighborhood change, it was getting younger. The demographic was changing as well. It was becoming much more global because it was in an area of tech and younger. And there was missing the need for fitness. There was a leakage in the market for fitness. And so we made the decision then to find the best fitness operator. And at that time, EOS was coming into the state. And we were, I think, their second or third gym to open. And now, not only did we get the benefit of the EOS coming into the center, we're already re-tenanting at higher rates. Plus, the restrictions were lifted that the grocer had, so we're able to put a pad out front. So we're really able to, increase the value of the center like 40, 50% just coming out of the gate with that deal. Again, I think it's going to continue to improve from there because, again, studying the neighborhood, seeing the shift and change. So the only thing I have to balance is the parking lot, right?
I was going to say the sort of dynamic of the traffic patterns, the parking are going to be quite different for fitness.
Yes.
Do you consider fitness to be an anchor? I mean, does that drive traffic to other stores?
Yeah. So we've seen, I always found this really interesting that people looked at restaurants a long time ago as very difficult to underwrite. We always said, but restaurants are the competition for grocery, right? And with time crunch consumer, it's much easier to go buy something or take it home or eat out than it was to make something, go to the grocer. So you maybe grow the grocer maybe 2 times a month. What we've seen now is in fitness has become sort of the newest anchor for stickiness and traffic. So a gym, or in the case we like the Pickler, those are a group that we work with as well, is that they're driving a customer to our location 2-3 times a week, right? And it's very sticky and it's very communal. So that is our new traffic driver that we see. And just the whole category of health, wellness, beauty, and fitness has really, really grown over the last 5 years. And that's a new way of bringing community together. And that's where people come together, especially after COVID. They seek their community in fitness. And it's also a way, if you're work from home, to engage outside of the house. If you've been cramped in the house all days, especially with the kids, you get out to the gym. So it's been a good driver for our centers.
You mentioned the Pickler, who we have had on our show before. Folks that aren't familiar, it is pickleball. Do you have, so Pickler's in one of your centers?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And how is it doing?
Oh boy, I think it's in McKinney, Texas, just outside of a suburb outside of Dallas. And so this is kind of a fun story to talk about. So we had a Bed Bath & Beyond in one of our centers. And, with what happened there, it's a real shame. They were a great retailer back in its day. But rather than go back into, and again, we don't have a lot of soft goods and hard goods. So what was happening is it wasn't far from the Nebraska Furniture Mart. So we had a number of furniture users that wanted the space, right? So we were approached by, a number of furniture retailers. And with the leasing team, I said, well, there's restrictions, there's covenants, they're asking for a lot of money to invest in the space. Is this really what we want? Let's take a look and see, go back again to the neighborhood and see what else would make sense. So they did. And we couldn't put a gym in there because the challenge with the gym is we also had a very highly trafficked Trader Joe's. And so that would conflict, right? So that was a natural, we're not going to do that. So they came back to me, they had done this study, and they said, well, what about pickleball? Pickleball. I said, no, pardon the audience out there, but I did say this, isn't that for old people? And don't they play it in their retired years on outdoor courts? How are you going to compete? Tell me how pickleball makes money. So they did a really good job of studying it and showing the value proposition of indoor pickleball. And I said, well, this does make a lot of sense. Go find the best operator. So therein lies, that's how we met the Pickler. And I think we're one of the earlier ones that came out of state. And right away, to me, it was almost a no-brainer because the franchisee who they brought in was a group of pickleball fanatics. One of them had already like a social media account on Instagram that was just huge. That engaged like 6,000 people all over in pickleball, not just in his neighborhood, but he was just clearly a fanatic. And I thought, well, the customer acquisition is going to be easy for him. And sure enough, the moment they opened, they oversold the memberships right away. It's a huge hit. Every time I visit there, the place is just humming with activity. And what I like, it's parking light. You don't have the same, a gym packs them in. It gives a little bit more room. We went to Trader Joe's and said, are you okay with this? They said, yeah, we love it. That's our customer.
Yeah.
So that brought us into that success. And now, now I'm a pickleball fanatic too, go figure. But
so you play yourself
I
now?
love it. And I had to learn why it was such a great sport. And after talking to the guys that, formed the Pickler, and what we realized is that the number one customer for that is young men. Right? It's highly athletic. It's very communal. It's a great way to socially meet people. The leagues play during the day, but at night you have all these young people coming in and it's fun. Right? And when I asked, I said, why do you do this? I said, well, it's athletic. To me, it's fun and it's better than sitting home drinking beer by myself. And it's a new demographic, I think, that it brings to our center as well.
Are there any other new ideas or new concepts you're exploring or thinking about adding to your centers?
Yeah, I think this is where things get interesting. We're still going to keep leaning into the health, wellness, and beauty. I think that's still going to be strong because we also have the type space that we have. It's 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. That is by the most flexible space with the widest range of uses. So it allows us to pivot quickly. So I think we're still seeing this trend continue. One of my favorites, I think, is that they've done it really well is the Now Massage. The reason why they've done it so well is that a lot of times as we come into somebody coming in our space, spending a lot of money demising a space is very costly. And they figured out how to create this great, unique environment. It sounds like waves washing along the shore and these heavy burlap curtains. And the cost is so much lower, right? And it has a membership model. And the owner she's very, very smart. She knew what she was doing. Making it very appealing to landlords as well. So those are, I'm seeing that. I am seeing as well, I'm seeing that there's a sort of a renewed focus towards, in the retail environment, on soft goods and hard goods, and that they're downsizing in their footprint. So the one that I think is so interesting is IKEA, right? They're doing these small footprint stores and going closer into communities. And I thought, well, when I wanted to sign, why are you guys doing this? And they recognized that they wanted to appeal to a broader range of customers. I mean, some people just don't want to go into an IKEA store and get lost for a day.
Yeah, they don't have a whole day.
They don't have a whole day to get lost and try to figure their way around. And they have taken sort of like the RH showrooming concept. And I think that's happening across the board with with people that want to disperse into smaller centers, get closer to their neighborhoods. They're figuring out how to do it with a smaller footprint and keep their inventory costs down too.
Yeah. Smaller stores, more of them. What's your favorite way, other than being out there and talking to tenants? What's your favorite way to stay on top of the latest trends?
Ooh, this is a fun one. So, as you know, I teach at Rice in the MBA program because I had you as a speaker.
We'll yeah, I mean, you teach, so you're talking to the kids all the time. Well, they're not that young. They're grad students.
I do call them the kids, so it's probably getting myself into trouble and aging me here. But I find one of the reasons why I do like to teach is that I get their perspective.
Yeah.
And I think what's the most exciting thing that's happening right now is that group. First of all, if you look at the millennials and the ages that are following behind it, so whether you call it, you got Gen Z and you got Gen Alpha coming right behind it as well, that especially the millennials, they're coming in their most productive times in their life, right? They're coming into their 30s. Now they understand their jobs. They're well trained. They're very productive. They've been delayed in their spending habits because of whether it's debt, school debt, a number of things that have held them back, unfortunately. But now they're coming into their time to spend. And they're driving the new choices, right? So they're a little different than their parents. So the boomers, I always thought of it, they always like to show their wealth by what they drive, what they wear, and where they live, their houses. This group is asset light. So they focus on it in a very, very different way. It's where I am, who I'm with, what concerts I'm going to, where I eat. They show it, right? What trips I'm taking. So their experience level has broadened so much more. So it means also not just focusing on, that age group, but also traveling quite a bit. So I do love to travel. I love to visit cities. I love to see how different cities approach retail, what the ideas are there. So that kind of opens the door for me as well.
Yeah.
To see things. And a lot of it's observation.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend a lot of time just observing how people operate in our space and in watching and asking what's this important to you and why. We also have a young team as well. And I think that makes it really important, is to set them free because they're going to reach their customer base and they're going to think the way they do versus the way I do with it. My job is to make sure, again, successfully serve the community, make sure we're underwriting well. They're the ones that are bringing the new concepts into the door. That makes it exciting. I think that clearly the important part of what we do is that we do have to serve our communities, and bringing community together is really important.
Yeah.
Cigna did this excellent survey about loneliness, and they found out, yes, and they redid it again after COVID. So it's about a 5 or 6 year old survey. Then they redid it after COVID. And one of the loneliest generations is Gen Z. And they're the ones that grew up with a phone, right? And so here they're the most connected, but they're also the loneliness, right? And so because of that, I think it's more important than ever that we in real estate, as a broader group as well, but also in retail, that we focus on giving a reason for people to get together, right? Giving a reason that I look at a lot of what we do is, are we providing a living room for our customers, right? Are we providing a reason to come, not just to sell them something? And that's where I think the malls got a little lost. If it's just about a temple to brands and consumerism, I look at it and say, people are coming here to meet others, to be communal. And how do we make sure that we express that correctly in our centers so we're of value to the neighborhood?
Oh my God, that was perfect. I want to just mic drop moment. I just want to end it right there. But I did actually, I do want to circle back on one thing. You brought up that you teach at Rice University. How did you get into that, and what do you get out of it? Because I'm sure it's a lot of work, right? My wife's a college professor. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
It's been a great opportunity. It was an unexpected opportunity. I was in graduate school myself at Kellogg, and I always appreciated what I learned while I was in school. And so, oddly enough, the Rice community, the MBA program, had called me in from another professor that was there as well from Kellogg, and said, we'd like to hear about your experience there. We're developing our program at Rice in particular. We're looking to also develop in certain nodes like real estate. So we had a great conversation and some follow-up. And then, one of the chairs of the department asked me if I would then take on a class. And we started, I said, well, I don't know, I've never taught before. What do you need to be taught? And I didn't, I learned that was a new thing too. I had to do up my own curriculum and it was a fun experience. But what came down from it all is that I had to approach the students in the same way that I approached the community. Number one, it's a tremendous investment, as you know, to get an MBA. It's very expensive. So I have to make it worthwhile for them. And so I invest a lot of time in teaching. And in addition to that, I changed the curriculum at least 1/3 of it up to make sure it's current because our world's changing so much. So there's so much shift. So it is disruption in commercial real estate. That is the name of it. We use real estate as a vehicle to think about things strategically as an old line business, how you can create change, how you can create value. And I've been so blessed with the student population. Every year I say, wow, that's exhausting. But in the end, I'm so glad I do it. And, it's been 10 years. And, I think we're going to, now, fortunately, I brought, Daniel in. He was one of my students and brought him in as well. He's my right hand in the company to help me out with it. And he's even more relatable to them. So it's very helpful to make sure that we're current, bringing something of value. And they give back a lot. I just learned from them. It's really a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. It seems like a great group. Christine, you're COO of a great REIT. You teach disruption in commercial real estate, which sounds like the coolest class I know because I met some of the students virtually anyway. You're awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. This is wonderful. I appreciate it.
This has been great. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you like this podcast, do me a favor, go into the app that you're listening to and give us a rating. Or even better, give us a little review, write just a sentence about what you like about the show. You can subscribe to Where We Buy on the iPhone podcast app, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can always find us on the web at wherewebuy.show. We also post a ton of cool videos and interviews on LinkedIn and YouTube, video tours, interviews with folks that you won't hear on this audio podcast. You can check it out by going to the website everythingweknow.show. If you have a specific question about retail, shopping centers, or retail real estate, you can feel free to connect with me and send me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me by searching for James Cook, JLL. Our theme music is Run in the Night by the Good Lords under Creative Commons license.